Cross Politic begins in 3, 2, 1.
I'm a heart that breaks for a dying city.
Stop cursing your future.
Is not true.
For all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
No government, no political system has ultimate supremacy. Jesus is King of Kings, and it's about time our nation returned in humble submission to his lordship.
You are not protecting women. You are authorizing the destruction of 500,000 little women every year.
But I didn't start it. But sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old. I didn't start it.
Right, when the Spirit comes upon people, they go to war. They go to battle, and the enemies of God are driven back, and they're slaughtered.
You are listening to Cross Politic with Gabe Wrench, the Water Boy, Pastor Toby Sumter, and the Chocolate Knox.
Raise your hands right now.
Yes.
Hallelujah. Yes.
This is my soul among the lions.
My God, why have you forsaken me?
Or as we refer to it at my house, this is Jody.
Jody.
We just refer to Jody.
Hey,
let's listen to some Jody.
All day long I cry.
So this is my soul among the lions.
Yep.
They have just enjoying that. A Kickstarter project coming out. I did that fade.
That was a good tease.
That wasn't a bad fade.
The fade was horrible, but the tease was good. That's a good tease because I was there.
Was that using your fader thingy?
That was my fader thingy.
Oh, very good. I'm glad.
I was ready to hear some more.
Welcome to Cross Politic. That was my soul among the lions. They have a Kickstarter project out right now. If you guys want to support their work,
so mysoulamonglions.com, okay,
yes,
is their website, and these guys are putting all 150 Psalms to music.
Oh, is that what their goal is?
That's what their goal is.
The whole Psalms.
All of them.
Oh.
And so they've so far have Psalms 1 to 20 done. They have 2 albums out, and they already have the 3rd decade done. They're in the process of recording, mastering, and getting ready to release that in the spring, and that's what this Kickstarter project's for. But they want to work their way all the way through the Psalter.
That is awesome.
Right. So if we need, and it's great. They use it in their church.
Mm-hmm.
Back at this is Pastor Tim Bailey's church.
Yes.
He's the Jody Killingsworth is the lead singer of My Soul Among Lions and the worship pastor at Clear Note Church.
Yep.
And Gabe, you went there.
Mm-hmm.
You met Jody.
I was just there.
Did you meet
Jody?
him?
We became friends on Facebook this week.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, digital friendship turns into real.
But just know
Whoa.
how long it took for us to become friends on Facebook. I went a couple weeks ago, and then he's like, he had to think about it, and he's like, all right.
Well, actually, I was kind of working things behind the scenes for you, Gabe. No, I'm kidding. I was like,
he really is a good
guy.
guy.
Like, come on, like he's deaf in one ear. I mean,
and he's from Texas, but don't hold that against him.
Don't get him started.
I want to encourage everybody. I've been really blessed by these Psalms. Pull up mysoulamonglions.com. Listen to a couple of their YouTube videos. They got a great Psalm 2. I love that one. My kids love Psalm 16 and Psalm 15. They've got a great version of Psalm 8. All of them are great.
Yeah.
And a kind of folk style.
Yeah.
Around the house. Listen to it around the house.
Yeah.
Very singable, very memorable.
Yeah.
Anyways, want to encourage y'all to support the Kickstarter project. Give something to them.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, what better way to get the scriptures in your heart?
Absolutely.
There's just music. Do it.
Get it stuck in your head.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I find that I want to see, I think this is very important to contribute to because I want to see all types of genres of Psalms like this being done.
Yeah.
And so when I see brothers who are in it and they're doing it, I want to support Psalms being made, especially for our time.
Yeah. Right. We need to sing the Psalms.
We need to sing the Psalms. That's right. They
need to become a common folk house music.
Yeah. Psalms are the war songs
Amen.
of the church.
Absolutely.
Right? We need to learn to think thoroughly biblically, and you can't think thoroughly biblically if you are not marinating in the Psalms.
That's right. Support them.
This is not really, we aren't going there with this, but I've often said, if you go to a church and you can't sing Psalm 137 in that church, then you need to leave.
Right.
And Psalm 137 ends with that God would crush babies' rocks on heads.
You didn't quite say that right, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. It ends.
This is why Jody didn't want to be friends with him. You see what I'm saying?
Babies' rocks.
Babies' heads on. right. It sounded so right in my head now. Okay.
Jody just rejected your phrase.
Babies' enemies on the rocks.
Right.
Cross their heads on the rocks. Yeah, cool.
I mean, there's a bunch of psalms though that are like that.
That are like that.
They're imprecatory psalms that recognize that we have enemies, recognize that we need God to judge and do vengeance on our behalf. It recognizes that there's evil in the world, that we have enemies, and that we need to fight.
And it needs destruction and judgment.
Yep.
And if your church can't sing that psalm,
right,
in praise to God, then I would leave.
Yeah, you gotta if we're gonna fight, we gotta fight when we worship.
That's right.
So, anything happened this week? Nothing. Okay, great.
Man,
well, it was great being here, guys.
All right, we'll see ya.
Yeah.
Until next week.
Go light your fight. Oh man, now I can't talk.
And Gabe cursed this.
I did it. Hey, so there's in cross politic news. There's a couple things I wanted to bring up. One was obviously what had been going on with Harvey Weinstein. Harvey. So if you guys haven't been following the news, Harvey Weinstein is a big Hollywood mogul, producer, owned the Weinstein or was president of the Weinstein film company.
TWC.
No, I think it's actually called Weinstein.
Yeah, the Weinstein Company.
Yeah.
And TWC.
Oh, okay. I'm acronyms at this. It's Friday
Get
afternoon.
Some more of that beer
it's Friday afternoon.
You need some more beer.
So, anyways, but a lot of big movies have been produced through him, through his name, through his companies, through his money.
He's got his hands on everything.
He's got his hands on everything.
Yeah.
And
that's a pun.
Which means
you're the only person who cut the game, just went right past it like it didn't even exist.
I did. Yep, I did. It did.
Wait, so you're saying like he did something bad?
So he did.
I mean, he's in Hollywood.
So he's been known in Hollywood for being a groper, someone who uses position of power to get what he wants with women,
like Trump. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're not talking about that.
You mean he's doing what Jay-Z sings about?
Oh, that's right.
He likes hip hop.
Wait. You mean he didn't mean it? You mean
no? He did mean it because he wanted it, and he got it. And so there's a lot of women who are now coming out. So the New York Times did an article on him. His own ABC affiliate wouldn't do the article, so the guy went to the New York Times to be able to get the article published.
Wait, he wouldn't run the article?
Well, because ABC's connected to the whole.
You mean there's money connected to all this?
There's bucko bucks connected to all this.
Don't mess with my idols.
I thought when people had tons of money and they didn't know God, they just were these temples of virtue.
Hollywood
they're holy,
in the name, bro.
Holy and good. Hollywood. And of course Hillary Clinton comes out this last week, Hillary saying that.
Oh, that's that one lady that tried to run for president.
And basically came after Harvey Weinstein and said, it said he's a bad man, he's an awful guy, he's using his position of strength to get what he wants with women.
When she was ranting, did she accidentally say, and Bill, oops.
Bill, you're just as bad as Weinstein.
Oh man.
And but here's a little clip I want to play with you.
Oh no.
Yeah, we're gonna just a little bit of this clip where a couple years ago this model or actress kind of did a sting on him a little bit in his hotel room.
Do we need to get the kiddies out the room?
So no, this is okay. This is okay. It's shocking, but it's nothing vulgar.
He's coming now, and 1 minute, and if you want to leave when the guy comes with my jacket,
yesterday you touched my breast.
Oh, please, I'm sorry. Just come on. I'm used to that.
But are you used to that?
Yes, come in.
No, but I'm not used to that.
I won't do it again. Come on, sit here. Sit here for a minute, please.
No, I don't want to.
If you do this now, you will embarrass me. No. Fine.
So that's it. Short clip. There's basically about 1 minute and 45 seconds of him doing this, saying, "Please come in my hotel room. Please come in. You're embarrassing me. Come in while I take a shower, and you can sit on the couch." And he says, "Don't ruin your friendship with me over this." And then what you heard there, that moment you heard was he was trying to talk her into it, and then she brings up, "You touched my breast the other day," and he says, "Oh, I'm used to it." Basically, right. I do that all the time. I'm used to it. I meant no offense. I'm used to it.
We do that on my movies all the time.
Yeah, right. And so there's a number of women. Gwyneth Paltrow came out and said Weinstein did similar pressured her in similar ways.
Did you guys see the whole Ben Affleck thing?
Yeah.
So Ben comes out and says, "Oh, I'm so disappointed," and then all these women start coming out about Ben.
Oh, well, hold on, Ben.
Yeah, wait.
Where's all this righteousness you talking about?
Right.
What you say?
And,
remember that one time in band camp?
right.
It wasn't band camp.
All right, Ben.
Right.
Yeah, don't get holy.
So it turns out you can only do that when you're actually getting paid to do it.
50 Shades of Grey.
Right. When you're actually getting paid to do it, then you can do it.
Then it's okay.
Right. But never nowhere else.
Yeah. Well,
that's creepy. That's disgusting.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or when it becomes an issue of public problem, because everyone knew about this.
Right.
Like in the 30 Rock did an episode where they literally had a joke.
I saw the clip. I saw the clip where the gal says that she was propositioned.
Yes.
By Harvey Weinstein and
3 times
turned him down 3 times out of 5.
And it was a joke on 30 Rock.
Yeah.
And then Steve McFarlane, the guy who created
something.
Oh, come on. It's the
He's got a fake Star Trek out right now too, doesn't he?
Does he?
I think so. Yeah.
God, so not on my mind right now, but Steve McFarlane hosted one of the Globes or one of the movie award shows, and he said in one of the awards he's given away there's 5 women who were up for it. There are 5 nominees for it, and he said in his monologue that now they don't have to worry about impressing Harvey Weinstein anymore. In his monologue,
right?
So this is like nothing secret.
So Weinstein is a scapegoat.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Right. So everybody needs to know this.
Yeah.
So Hollywood is completely perverse and corrupt.
Yeah.
Right. Through and through. And Weinstein is a scapegoat. They're throwing him to the lions to just try to satisfy, like, look, we're gonna all get our Pharisaical, game on.
Right.
We care about virtue.
Yeah.
And
after 5 divorces with their wives, cheating on their wives.
Right. And so they can tisk and pretend to care about virtue and goodness and respect and honor and dignity.
Yeah, I mean when a person
5 minutes.
Yeah, that's what's so bothering about the whole thing is that very thing. When you see someone like Hillary Clinton, who is for killing little babies in the womb, for gay marriage, for destroying everything that's moral and right about our society, that's Christian about our society, come out and be like, how dare him? You're like, what?
Right.
Yeah.
Really?
Right.
Like when did you get such a great moral compass, Hillary?
Right.
When did any of these people in Hollywood all of a sudden have a standard? Can't walk down a red carpet with your clothes on.
Yeah.
And you're mad at him.
We're gonna talk to Scott Yenner in the next in the next segment here about some of this, but you can't have a worldview that says that your identity is not grounded in the way God actually made the world and God's word. You can't have a world in which you insist on that, where you insist that you find your own identity, find your own way of being man or woman or it or whatever you want to be. You can't insist on that over and over again and then be upset and shocked and dismayed when people do it.
Weinstein, he found his.
He found his identity.
Why are you upset?
He just touches people's breasts.
Yeah.
That's where he's following his heart.
Yeah.
Man.
Make him feel better. Last week we talked about Jimmy Kimmel preaching.
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking
Pastor
Kimmel preaching.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's what Hollywood does.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about this a little bit. Hollywood preaches, all their movies preach, all their sitcoms preach, and then when hypocrisy is exposed, everyone starts preaching at the scapegoat, as you pointed out.
Right. Well, that's
and here's the problem: is why are we listening to their preaching? Right? We've been listening to their preaching. We've been listening to sitcom Friends, Will and Grace. I mean, all this stuff has seeped into our bones in ways that we don't even realize. We're just absorbing their preaching and their music, and their movies.
You mean their form of incrementalism?
Ooh, are we going to go there again?
Uh-oh.
What? Huh?
Uh-oh.
Did I say that?
Hey, what?
I didn't say. You got more news.
What does that word?
Got more news.
What does that word mean?
Do we beat that? but the correction starts with us. We got to stop listening to their preaching. We got to start producing our own preaching.
In the early church, there's a bunch of really vehement writing against the theater.
Yeah.
And at times, I've been, I think, kind of overly critical, and I thought, well, they're kind of Gnostic or they're kind of cranky. But anymore, like more and more, I think
interesting.
We are going, like, they were pagans.
Yeah.
So and they were doing wicked, evil, grotesque, perverse things on the stage.
Yeah.
And the Christians were like, we're out of here. We're not going to support this.
Are you trying to tell me I got to get a different industry?
We're not doing this. Well, they pulled out, and I think we need to seriously be thinking about, what are we supporting? What are we giving our money to?
Right.
Why is
Right.
it that so many Christians have spent so much time watching Friends?
Right.
And they're like, well, that's really funny. Yeah, it is really funny to watch people mock
Fornicate.
God. Mock God.
Well,
Pretend they
absolutely.
get away with
I mean, this
everything.
is exactly
Normalize abominations.
Right.
You want to know the perfect example of this is Ellen.
Yeah.
Ellen DeGeneres is funny.
Yeah.
And I'll hear something on Facebook or see a clip and I'm like, wow, she's funny. And then immediately my gut checks. That's the trick. That's the trick.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And I'm saying this,
You know
like,
what I mean?
raising my hand, like being one of them.
Right.
Like, I did it. Like, I watched stuff that was evil.
That's exactly why I don't watch her show.
Right. And we need to repent.
Yeah, absolutely. And we shouldn't be caught in the trap. Like that's the trap. It's entertaining and it's engaging.
Right.
And I know I don't agree with what she's saying and
But
or
let's-
who's her lifestyle, but she's funny.
Connect the dots here too. So you can't stand there and say, I am pro-life. I'm an abolitionist. I want to see abortion end now, and then keep watching another episode
Of Game of Thrones.
All right. I mean, of these, any of these shows that are glorifying fornication.
That's right.
Right. What are they doing? They're saying, we're putting sex, our personal fulfillment over biology, over the way God made the world, over marriage, over honoring God.
Right.
So if we're supporting that, then every time you click on that, every time you watch it, I'm not even talking about porn. I'm not even talking about stuff where they take their clothes off in front of the screen. I'm just talking about the stuff where they're glorifying casual sex.
Right.
We are supporting, that lifestyle, which is propping up abortion.
Even though you think you might be taking a knee on social issues, you're actually standing up, putting your hand on your heart. Oh yeah, I did. Oh yeah, I did.
I mean, you're just full of puns, aren't you? Did you get enough sleep last night?
Nope. That's a problem. Scott Yenner, when we come back on Cross Politics. No, I didn't get any sleep last night. So you guys are in trouble.
Canon Press is a publishing house located in Moscow, Idaho. At Canon Press, we create and provide products that sketch a vision of the whole life, a whole culture, a life full of beauty, tradition, education, community, laughter, and celebration, unashamed of Christ, and sharply at odds with the values of modernity. A mature culture with the church at the center, living out the good life, one family at a time. We believe our book, audio, and visual selections reflect this exciting life that God has given us under the sun. As the wisest man said, go eat your bread with joy and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already accepted your works. CanonPress.com.
For 21 years and counting, New St. Andrews College has sought to obey Christ's Great Commission to disciple nations and build him a house, not just in Jerusalem, but throughout the world. Not with stones and mortar, but with living stones. We build and fight. This is the task of a Christian liberal arts college, to equip students with the tools to build and fight. And this is our joyful task as we seek to graduate leaders who shape culture through wise and victorious living. To learn more, check us out online at nsa.edu/explore.
Welcome back to Cross Politic. We are really thankful to have with us Scott Yenner. Scott Yenner is a professor of political science at Boise State University.
Ooh.
We won't hold that against him.
It's the Community College of Idaho.
Oh!
Oh, sorry, Scott. Welcome, Scott.
It hurts. It hurts.
But for those of you that don't know, Moscow is home to University of Idaho, and University of Idaho is old-time rivals with BSU and Boise.
Where I graduated from.
You went to U of I?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I'm alum.
BSU is famous for the blue turf.
That's right. Smurf turf.
You still have the Smurf turf down there?
I believe we do.
Okay. You don't seem very confident about that.
I can see it from my office.
Okay.
You know when they made the Smurf turf, the blue turf, they didn't have the stripes on it yet, and ducks would fly in and die trying to land.
Is that right?
Into the water. No, that's a joke. That's a wives' tale. A cab driver told me that when I was down there in Boise one time.
I'm just surprised Scott said he still has an office. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah. So Scott, you're a professor of political science at BSU. You teach political philosophy. It says you live in Meridian, Idaho with your wife and your 5 kids.
Ooh,
nice.
PhD from Loyola University and BA from University of Wisconsin. And I hear that you've gotten yourself into some hot water recently, and I wonder if maybe you could bring our listeners up to speed. There've been, there's an article in the National Review about your work, but this is a response to you kind of got in trouble. What happened?
Well, in late June, I had a report published through the Heritage Foundation in their First Principles series called Sex, Gender, and the Origins of the Culture War in Intellectual History. And in that report, I trace the history of what I call their second wave feminism, or what they call the feminists call radical feminism, and linked it to today's developments in transgender theory. The link being that both feminism and transgenderism separate one's body from one's identity. And I tried to show what that meant for feminism and how that bled into transgender theory and activism today. I wrote a bunch of pieces that also supported that in various outlets, including another one in the Daily Signal that ran at the end of July that was entitled Transgender Activists Seek to Undermine Parental Rights. And while that was published, that was, I guess, seen as provocative by some activists on campus. And
how did they find out about it?
Well, it was posted as the university posts all research on a particular website, and it was posted on a particular website at the university and on its Facebook page. And that is what I think prompted the backlash of sorts.
Yeah.
So, I think right away, the dean and the university president, determined that I had the freedom to write this kind of thing. And there's been no investigation or anything like that at Boise State, but there have been, a piling up number of unpleasantries. The faculty senate moving against me, though the motion sits on the table right now. Being called a neo-Nazi and blaming me for genocide in Charlottesville. I mean, I'm a very powerful man.
I'm glad we got you on Cross Politics.
I know. Your schedule was available.
By the director of, in fact, I had a knee replacement while this was all going on, so I wasn't really even available to go to Charlottesville.
Oh, wow.
Had I wanted to.
Wow.
And that was published by the director of diversity and inclusion, ironically, at Boise State.
Yeah, inclusion.
Oh man.
No. And there was also a petition that has been signed, by I don't know how many people, to have me fired.
Right.
And
now, has there been any
posters up around campus with my picture on it? Fire Scott Yenner. Scott Yenner has blood on his hands and things like that.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
And
has there been any kind of like positive aspects to this, where students on campus have been encouraged and been supportive?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of private emails from people, and it has been quite nice to receive such emails from people who are not only happy that I'm willing to write on these topics and like what I say, I think, but also that find the sides that name call and this stuff kind of ridiculous. And so there's been a lot of doors opened up at the same time.
Yeah, you're a Christian, correct?
Yes.
And what have you kind of learned in all this? Kind of being a little, most people wouldn't write an article like this because they know it would get them in trouble. It's kind of stepping out, and you're a professor at a public university, and you know immediately that you're already not going to get support from people who should be your colleagues and be on your team and supporting you. What have you kind of learned from all this?
Well, there's a chapter in Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago. This is a strange way of talking about this, but this chapter is called The Ascent, and it's about being in prison. And Solzhenitsyn says that when you're in prison, you're of a fork. There's a fork in your life, and on the one way is you're going to put survival above everything else, and then other people are going to control your life in the prison. And then the other side is where you know that your life is lost, and that allows you a certain kind of freedom to act your conscience and to act and to try to do what's right. And so the way I picture the experience that I've had here is that this is a case where I kind of face a fork. I've kind of always thought of my academic life along that fork, and I try not to put survival on the terms of the public university as the most important thing in my life, but rather trying to stand up for what I believe. And I've gotten a chance to tell the Solzhenitsyn story to a lot of people who say, you seem unusually chipper given all that's going on. And I feel there's a lot of reasons to be happy about, this. And I get to tell the story about the Solzhenitsyn book.
Yeah.
So I just see it as a form of intellectual, like I have a venue, I'm a tenured professor, I'm a respected scholar. I have a platform from which I can, pursue the truth and the rational inquiry that really is the life of the mind on the university. And I try to do that.
Hey, Scott, this is a Chocolate Knox. Why now? Because I looked at some of the other articles you've been writing, and this isn't anything new. You've been talking about this topic and subject, and you've been writing on this, and it seems like out of nowhere, you just kind of rewrite something that you've kind of already been touching on and just put a little more detail to it, and bam.
Hey, that's not true.
I'm sorry. Why now? We know it's true.
Yeah, why are they doing this over the leftovers? They should have gone after the main dish. And I think there is some truth to that. My book that was published in 2011, it's called Family Politics: The Idea of Marriage in Modern Political Thought.
You saw where I was going.
That was published by Baylor.
Yeah.
It contains, what I think to be a very high-minded and difficult to refute account of modern feminism.
Mm-hmm.
It ends with a section about the tensions within it that I think are unavoidable. And anyways, I thought that was like the most sophisticated thing that I've written on the topic.
Yep.
Now, the things that I'm doing now are different in that, I'm tracing the roots beyond just Simone de Beauvoir, but to other feminists who exist and to transgenderism. But I think the main point that I made in my book is what I'm fleshing out and putting a lot more meat on the bones. So the question of why now, I think, is a really pertinent one and an interesting question. And I think it does say a lot about the change on college campuses and the climate on college campuses between 2011 and now.
Oh, yeah.
And, there's more of a diversity and inclusion apparatus on the campuses. There's the entrenchment of the victim culture, the social justice mentality becoming the purpose of the university. Those are things that have happened between then and now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not all together. In fact, I would say university is either about pursuing truth and rational inquiry, or it's about promoting social justice. And what we're seeing now at Boise State is the leading edge, I think, of the change from one of those versions of the university to the other. And there's still, I think, a chance to reverse it. But it's going to take intentional action, to prevent the university from becoming that kind of venue.
Yeah. I want to talk about titles with you for a second, because as I was looking at some of your older articles, I mean, just this title that you were talking about earlier, transgender activists are seeking to undermine parental rights. Are you a Puritan? Because those titles are super long, man. Like, every title.
Have you read any Baxter?
Are you a Puritan? I just want to know. You must be a Puritan, right?
I don't write the titles.
All right. Well, okay.
He's got a Puritan editor.
Unless the title is something you find clever, then I will claim credit.
What's some time? But I want to talk about this article here for a second, because this one right here is kind of what really kicked up all the dust. And it seems like it's because you're going after their game plan, and you're kind of saying, hey guys, this is what they're doing. And they're saying, whoa, guy. Hey, he's pointing us out and what we're doing. And so you talk about 3 different ways that the transgendered movement is trying to, is mimicking feminism and trying to destroy the family. And the first way, you said, eliminate different ways that boys and girls are socialized, so you can, so that they have very similar characteristics and attitudes.
Well, I think that's an essential part of the transgender movement. Transgender means beyond gender. So they're trying to move the way we approach human life and how we speak and the kind of language we use beyond the idea that there's the binary distinction between men and women. So I see that as very closely related to the feminist project, which seeks to eliminate patriarchy or patriarchal socialization and give to men the same and women the same temperament, status, and roles. Those are the words that Kate Millett uses to describe the goals of feminism. So that's why I see transgenderism taking us beyond gender is the same aspiration that you see in very prominent feminist writers like Kate Millett, Susan Muller-Oken, from various generations of the feminist movement. So I see them on the same, trying to accomplish the same thing. Now, the controversial thing that I think I was arguing in the piece is that many feminists find transgenderism to be anti-feminist. And they do this because feminists say that transgenderism is based on a stereotypical view of women, so that men who transition to become women become ultra-effeminate, and thus reinforce the stereotypes about what a woman is supposed to be. So there are some really interesting books and quite strident feminist books written against transgenderism, but also really, very interesting books. The most interesting one of which is by Sheila Jeffries, called Gender Hurts. And, they're over-the-top criticisms of transgenderism as reinforcing those stereotypes. So that's one of the things that motivated the big report that I wrote for Heritage, is that I wanted to show that no matter the disagreements, the real theoretical kinship between feminism and transgenderism lies deeper, I think.
Although it's interesting that you point that out, but so the man who wants to transition to be a woman reinforcing these feminine characteristics, but then particularly underlining that when they start transitioning hormonally and physically, if the whole thing is based on this idea that, being a woman is not tied to your DNA, not tied to your biology, and then the man says, I think I'm a woman and now I need to have breasts, he's running right against that in a weird sort of way. Though I totally get your point that at the back of it, of course, is this kind of Gnostic idea that gender is not grounded in biology.
Right. And also too, one of the things that I'm noticing just from that first line there is that the transgender movement isn't saying just leave me alone and let me be trans. It seems like they're coming directly after what you hold to be sacred and valuable too.
Well, I try to argue this in the sex and gender piece, the longer piece, that one's identity, according to the transgender movement, is shaped by how it is affirmed by the environment around it. So you can't just have an identity unless you find the identity that you assert for yourself in the world. So
imagine
this is the importance. This is the importance of the bathroom debates or the sports the sporting team debates, the world has to acknowledge the identity that you assert for yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, then you're less than fully affirmed in that identity. So, and I think I give a nice account of that from this this feminist thinker, Judith Butler, who is a 2-time winner of the Bad Writing Award. So I'm looking for a Purple Heart for having read her entire course.
Wow.
And,
wow.
Yeah. I swore I would never do it. But, the things I will do for humanity.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for taking one for the team, brother.
I read these books so you don't have to.
That's right.
So Scott, kind of like what's next in this I guess endeavor or play that you're trying to run?
Well, you mean what am I going to write on next?
Yeah, I mean, what are you thinking next? I mean, are you going to keep engaging on this issue? It sounds like you're intentionally doing this because you see some real cultural problems at BSU that you want to push back on.
Yeah, did you stumble into this, or is this is this a play that you're running?
No, I mean, I somewhat stumbled into the whole family thing. So,
but you have 5 kids.
I mean,
you do have 5 kids.
Yeah.
That's not an accident, Scott.
You have a little wine. Next thing you know, you have 5 kids. I teach political philosophy, and I have tried to give an account of modern political thought, which the central idea of modern political thought is the conquest of nature, man becoming master and lord of nature. And I found myself over the course of time when I was teaching that the students really didn't understand it at that abstract level. So I would often talk about the family as the stand-in for nature, as various thinkers tried to reform the family, go through Locke and Hegel and Marx, and they have more and more radical reformations of the family, showing that man is taking over, is conquering nature, is defining all the terms for his life. And that's why I wrote the first book. And the first book, for an academic book, has been very successful, which is somewhat of an insult and somewhat of a compliment. And anyway, so I planned on writing a second one, which was just updating, talking about the family in today's world, in the contemporary world. And that I put that proposal forward for Heritage, and they brought me in as a fellow for a year. And I wrote some papers that will eventually become part of the book that I'm writing on the family and the modern order. Now, the way I'm organizing that book and the way I'm organizing my thinking on this is that there are really 3 planks to the revolution in family life: feminism, liberalism, and sexual liberation. And I'm trying to show what each of those groups, if you gave them everything that they wanted, what the world would look like.
Wow.
In the first part of my book. And then in the second part of my book, as I'm trying to show how that wouldn't necessarily be a world fit for human flourishing in any of those respects.
Wow.
Wow.
And so anyways, I'm deep into that book. I'm about 2/3 done with it, and I hope to finish it during the spring semester.
Wow, we gotta get you on to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the title of that book,
so
Scott?
That's my plan.
He doesn't write the titles, remember?
Titles.
Oh,
he doesn't do titles.
It's going to be something at least several sentences long.
It's going to be very puritanical, whatever it is.
Yeah. And
no, I mean my first book was Family Politics. That's 2 words.
But you've learned since then. Long titles.
Yeah.
No, so Family Politics. If our listeners want to grab a book by Scott now, that's available on Amazon. I just pulled it up. The Idea of Marriage in Modern Political Thought. Look up Scott online. Check out his articles. Scott, thanks so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for doing this. Thank you for writing this. Thank you for standing up for the truth. It's a huge encouragement and a blessing to us, and we hope to all of our listeners. So thanks so much, Scott.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on, gentlemen.
More Cross Politic when we come back.
This is Cy Timbergen with Answer Anyone Apologetics. Somebody comes up to you and says, I don't believe in God. And what do? We give them evidence. Look at the complexity of the eye. Look at this paper fragment. Look at these rock layers. And you've studied your rock layers. You wiped the floor with them. What's he going to do? He's going to go home and Google rock layers. You want him to repent and put his trust in Jesus Christ, and he's Googling rock layers. Congratulations. The next day you run into a PhD in geology and he wipes the floor with you. You see, when you do apologetics wrong, you have to be an expert in geology, biology, astrophysics, nuclear chemistry, you name it. You have to be brilliant. The problem is, there's always someone smarter than you. In John 10:27, Jesus did not say, "My sheep hear your really good argument." He said, "My sheep hear my voice." In Luke 21:15, Jesus said, "I will give you a mouth and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to withstand or contradict." The power of God for salvation is not in your brilliant arguments. As Romans 1:16 tells us, it's in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Apologetics is easy. Read your Bible and do what it says. For more apologetic answers, visit AnswerAnyone.com.
Wait for the drop, man. Now.
He's musically challenged.
Yeah, I have no rhythm. I'm white.
All right, play the thing.
All right, here we go. All right, here we go.
I'll keep playing
that was a good drop. Try now.
It's freezing up.
Hey, so while you're working on this, you guys want to thank you for all your support of Cross Politic. Thank you for giving. Thank you for buying merch, coffee, sweatshirts, hats, T-shirts. Really appreciate it. If we get this together, we're going to play a memo from a supporter. You can always drop us encouraging voicemails. You can also drop us discouraging voicemails if you
Challenges.
want.
Yeah, we love those.
Challenge us.
Memo at crosspolitic.com.
We'll play some of these. We'll interact with them. We understand that. Yeah, we want feedback. We want input. It's helpful. We appreciate it. So thank you much for it. And so I actually went to our website last week in order to make a donation.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you.
And but the thing is I wanted to give a one-time donation. And there's no option for that.
Right, yeah, no. If you in, you in.
Well, yeah.
I need to edit, edit that apparently.
I left the website.
Well, you ain't in then, is you? I just want you to know you in. That's how it is.
That's why when I show up here on Fridays, you guys are like, yeah, we already decided on that.
Yeah,
thanks for that suggestion, Pastor, but we already decided. We already talked about that.
Yeah.
You're not in. Okay. I might be willing to give.
You figured it out?
I figured it
out. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll fix that. We'll get it.
Anyways, I'd like to do that.
So
I'd like to give
just
something.
a little feedback from one of our listeners here real quick.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the...
Yeah, I've been listening to Cross Politic for a while, and I think you guys are doing a great thing for the ministry to help Christians think a little bit more than they're accustomed to doing. Looking at things from a whole perspective of Christ, I want to encourage you to keep up the good work. And I'm a listener from down in Pearson, Florida, which is sort of Central Florida. So
how about that?
Keep it up, fellas. Really think that you're blessing us all here out, and may the Lord bless you too. Thank you.
That was really nice.
I like those.
Yeah.
Those are...
It was encouraging. I also emailed with a lady from Canada this past week, just super encouraged by how we're helping her and encouraging her. And she just went back and forth on an exchange of emails where she, because of listening to our show, and she also mentioned Apologia, wasn't just us, but Apologia guys, that she's just been more engaged in her Christian faith and politics and the abortion movement. And she's working with about 5 girls right now who are single mothers or kind of had that gone through the process of thinking about abortions and stuff like that. So just really, really cool that she's kind of gotten into that from being encouraged by us.
It's really encouraging.
Yeah.
One of the things too that I've really enjoyed, especially this last week, our show with Doug kind of caught a few people's attention on incrementalism.
Yeah.
And
just a few.
and it's not a lot. I mean, you see a couple of people talking about it, but one thing I've enjoyed is watching the comments come through and watching how people are engaging has been enjoyable.
Yeah.
Usually on topics that can be so divisive. Sometimes I see people comment and they think the worst of the other person that they disagree with, and because of our society, it has to demonize somebody that might be on the same team.
Right.
But it has to demonize them in order to be able to win the argument. But that's, as a Christian, that's not how we work. As a Christian, we are always pointing to the right position for the purpose of glorifying Christ and winning our brother. Right. And so when I see conversations that happen like that, I'm way more willing to engage and to be, because that's even though, like, for instance, I liked when Joel and Doug, or like, for instance, you just wrote an article too, Pastor Toby. I like watching you guys go at each other and have those dialogues. For the most part, I find civility in them. But above all, whether or not you guys move to other person's position, I feel like I'm the one blessed above all, in that conversation, in that debate. So I think those are very healthy. And it's, and so I like to see sometimes people on the same team who have a different way of approaching the topic or subject engage for one goal, one purpose. So it's been really encouraging to see the fallout from that show. Yeah. And so I'm grateful for it. And I want to encourage people, remember that the person that you're talking about is made in the image of God. Remember, that's God's child. Right. That's his son.
As we talk about honoring the image of God.
Yeah.
Remember, people that we're talking about are made in the image of God.
Yeah. And remember what they brought to the topic too. Remember what they brought to the whole ordeal. And so I find it when I see people just tear apart somebody's character because they disagree with them, when it's like, man, that wasn't justified.
Right.
It's hard for me to want to move to that person's position or even give them credit when I'm like, man, that was just, I
think sometimes too the arguments stay just too ethereal. And it's got to get, like, I think we probably have a lot more. I mean, we got to talk about theory and principles, but I think it's helpful to get down to brass tacks. Like, what are we going to do now?
No, absolutely.
And there could be places where we part company with one another on certain particular tactics or something like that. But I think in a lot of ways that we're probably far more closely aligned than we realize.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And I think somebody, who says, I think this is a really mediocre bill, for example, or not even, kind of not even helpful at all. Like, well, okay, propose one.
Right.
Float get one.
Yeah.
Get one up there. Let's do it. And I think there's also there's tons of room for people to just do what's on your heart. Like, if it's within the the law of God, then use the energy you have, use the enthusiasm, the zeal, the joy, the opportunities you have, use it. Do it, see what God does with it. But I think it's easy to sometimes just sit in a room and complain, and fuss, critique. Yeah. But it's like,
assume.
Let's just get this done. Let's go do it and get practical, and then let's see what it looks like.
Yeah.
See what it looks like on the ground. And and if people are being cowardly, then let's call them out.
One of the things that
I
haven't figured out yet is I haven't figured out how people are. This is my hesitancy to jump in on some of this, is that I don't. How do you define incrementalism? I don't know how people are defining that. I see there's a form of incrementalism that I absolutely don't like, which is, oh, we've got this, we're done.
Sure.
And I see a lot of people who that it looks like. I've been a part of a group in a ministry where it's looked like, oh, we're doing something great, but we're really not moving the chains at all. It's still 4th and 1, it's like you guys, or, 4th and goal, and you're at the, the 20-yard line on the other side of the field,
Right.
And so I see that form of incrementalism, and that drives me absolutely nuts.
Right.
And then I see guys who are out there pushing, moving the chains, getting things done, moving down the field. And then I see other people who are saying, you know what we need to do? We don't need to wait for a hike. We need to just go run down there in the end zone and spike it down right now.
Right.
And because the people who are moving the chains are not doing that, they're saying, you guys, man, you guys aren't real. Your offensive line is weak.
Well, and
quarterback is weak.
Right, you're waiting for the snap.
Yeah, you waiting for the snap. Like, nah, man, like forget the clock.
And I think for me, there's 3 categories of incrementalism. There's the incrementalists who do something and want to end abortion. There's the incrementalists who don't really want to end abortion. but they still want to look like they're presenting some sort of incrementalist laws. And then there's, the incrementalists that I just don't even trust. That they say they're wanting to do something, and that's the category that when I talk about things, I'm usually talking about incrementalism against that kind of thing. I don't trust you. I don't think you're going to get anywhere.
You're just trying to get my vote.
Yeah, you're just trying to get my vote.
Do anything.
You just put on your website pro-life.
Right. Well, they're not even the conversation to me.
And then there's, it's like
no. This is an in-house discussion. Let's first create the balance. So this is an in-house discussion when we're talking about this.
Right.
And I think really the only people who are talking about this in a serious way are the ones who really want to end abortion.
Yeah.
It's not the ones that are you're talking about. They don't really care about this increment.
Yeah, right.
They're like,
so what about this aspect of this whole conversation? I think in the pro-life movement, they're nervous. There's a big faction that is very nervous, like Doug, who says, I'm certain legislation that wants to end abortion, I'm going to be against, because they want to flatten out the justice system and they want to say abortion's murder and everyone who gets an abortion deserves the death penalty or whatever.
First degree murder for everybody.
First degree murder for everybody. And so, but there's we need to be able to call abortion murder.
Yep.
And we need to be able to call that it's possible that this woman who was 17 years old murdered a baby, that it's possible that she could be guilty of some form of murder. That's a possibility.
Well, I want to say they're always complicit in the murder. The question is so what? Well, the way I'm trying to make
would you say a 10-year-old who's forced or 12-year-old who's forced to have an abortion, was she?
Well,
complicit?
no. If it's completely forced, then no. But I'm saying where there's some level of willingness, then there's complicity. But I think what we have to recognize is that the Bible itself sketches a complex picture. It's not just there's
a complex picture.
It judges a situation.
Of justice.
It judges each situation based on each situation.
Yeah, with principles.
And so absolutely.
And so it is absolutely true that all intentional taking of human life is murder. Period.
Right.
End of story. But the Bible also says that if two buddies are out in the woods chopping wood, and the axe head flies off, hits his brother, and his brother dies, and it was unintentional. He did not hate his brother in his heart before that. He's not guilty of murder.
But that's a case law underneath the standard.
Right.
Okay.
And then we also have there's another case law in Exodus, I think in the 20s somewhere, 29 maybe. You got the goring ox law. The goring ox law.
Yep.
So some guy who's got an ox, it gores somebody, it kills him.
Yep.
If the ox has never done that before,
right,
then he's not guilty of that bloodshed. But if the ox has done that before and he knew about it, then he's guilty and he can die.
That's right. That's right.
So, but that implies then that you've got things like intentionality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did he hate his brother in his heart beforehand? What did he know beforehand?
Yeah.
And then you also got a law in Exodus 21 where it talks about two guys scuffling around a pregnant woman.
Yep.
And if the baby is born and then dies, they're guilty of the life of that baby. So, justice has to take all of that data into account.
Yeah.
And so for example, I think I no doubt there are lots of situations where a mother full on just says, I know it's murder. I don't care. I'm killing my baby.
Oh yeah.
That's 90% of what's going on.
That happens.
That's 90.
We've seen YouTube videos of that.
And
I've been out there.
It's happening. So, and I'm not trying to say that should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Then
but I also know, I've told this story before on Cross Politic, but my wife and I were in a place where we had twins. We lost one of them. This is at about 21 weeks.
Right.
And this grandfather like doctor, I've told you his name's Dr. Maybe.
Yeah.
Remember this?
Yeah.
Irony.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He tells us, the whatever killed the first baby is probably going to kill the living daughter that's remaining. She's probably at least going to have massive genetic problems, disabilities, mental retardation, all this stuff. And earnestly, encouraged us to consider aborting her.
Right.
Now, it was never an option in our minds for a second, But you sit in that situation and suddenly you realize how many other people have found themselves in this situation where this grandfatherly like doctor is pleading with you, do the right thing, abort this baby.
And you're a single mom.
And whatever, all this stuff, and you're on your own. And I'm not saying that they're completely absolved of the guilt of that action.
Absolutely not.
But I'm saying knowledge and intent matters according to the Bible.
Yeah.
And I don't think that a woman in that situation who goes through with it, yes, I do think they're complicit in some fashion, in some degree. They are still responsible for their choices, and that shouldn't be removed from them. Nevertheless, I don't think that's the same thing as malice aforethought.
Right.
That's not the same thing as premeditated, intentional, hating your brother in your heart ahead of time.
Yeah.
And taking their life murder. It is a murder, but it's a different degree of murder. And so that's the thing that I think people need to keep in mind is, yes, I know. And I think, this is just different perspectives. Some people on certain front lines are seeing a particular kind of defiant, high-handed, bloodthirsty mother.
Yeah. Right.
And others are going to see other things as well. And I mean, I hear all kinds of stories about people who have been in it was in the email we got from somebody in Canada, I think, that was talking about women in recovery rooms all bawling their eyes out.
Yeah.
For having just aborted their babies.
Yep.
Right.
Like, now, I'm not going to just absolve them and say there's no complicity in the actions that they've done, but that's still a different scenario.
Yeah.
Than the guy who, pulls out an AK-47 and guns down a bunch of people at a concert.
Yeah. Right.
In cold blood, hard-hearted, yes, there's murder, there's taking of life, but bawling your eyes out afterwards and feeling awful and disgusting by it and feeling, like there was no other option. It's still wrong. It's still murder.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same thing as that hatred in your heart.
But what I'm seeing is that a lot of people who don't want to push for criminalization of abortion are running to that as that's the standard now.
Right. So we don't do that.
That's
it's a safe haven in their argument.
That's right. I see too many people. I've been a part of organizations that, let's run to that as our standard. So therefore we don't criminalize abortion. And so what I want to say is let's make the goal line very clear.
Right.
Let's make our finish very clear. What we want.
So we want to define abortion as murder.
So abortion is murder. If it is then murder, then to criminalize it would be the next thing to do.
Right.
And so that's what we want. So no matter where we're going, that's our end goal. The problem I'm seeing is most people who are going down this road don't want that.
Right.
They don't want to criminalize abortion.
So let it be clear that that's not what we're saying.
Absolutely not.
Right. We're saying it's murder, and if it's murder, then it should be prosecuted.
Absolutely.
But we also want to say, let's not overshoot and say, therefore, every single case is first degree.
Yeah, but I think you first got to get to that point.
Yeah, right.
Like, we could talk about...
But that's what Doug's pointing out, though. That's the whole thing, is Doug was saying, I didn't want to sign on to something that was going to say it's murder and they will be prosecuted as first degree.
Yeah.
All in the same bill. And Doug said, I think I'll pass on this one.
It's not a biblical thought, is what he's going after.
So
biblical thought has a process for each case. It works through each case.
That's right.
But with a standard.
That's right.
And so I think what people are missing is there is the standard and here's the standard.
Right.
Now let's use biblical.
Now it needs to get worked out through biblical due process.
I see, but I remember I had a shirt that said criminalize abortion, right? Like that's what I want. I offended more Christians with that shirt than I did pagans.
Yeah.
Because pagans already get it. If you're going to look, the only people who are arguing about this are Christians.
Donald Trump accidentally got it.
Christians are the only ones who argue about it. The pagans get it. If abortion is illegal, what next? They get it already.
Yeah.
And the Christians are the ones saying, no, we don't want to do that. Yes, we do.
Right.
That is, we're not pushing a form of incrementalism that doesn't have a judgment at the end of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, no.
Yeah.
So, and.
Yeah. The other thing that has to be kept in mind in this whole discussion that I'm not sure has been played enough is that the fact of the matter is unbelievers can't repent.
Right.
Non-Christians can't repent. They can be herded.
That's it.
That's it. And they don't want to be herded.
What do you mean by they can be herded?
Meaning, like, you can, so if you have a Christian magistrate, you can enact laws to try to, like, kind of fence them in and hem them in, but they're unbelievers.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're going to keep on, they'll find another way.
Well, that's what that's what biblical law is supposed to do, is to make wickedness go under.
To restrain lawlessness.
And so I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I'm just saying you got to remember that what we're doing is we're herding.
Yeah, but one of the things that I was reading. Okay, so when I was reading your article, one of the things that stuck out to me was just that the fact that one of the ways that we hurt the pro-life movement is pushing for a form of criminalization while we're trying to push for banning abortion, right? Like that was one of the things that. So, and I don't think that that's necessarily hurting the movement. I think that's where we want to
say it again.
So it seems, because I agree. I actually like your article and I agree with it. It's a good article on incrementalism.
Sorry, you can tell me if you don't like it.
But the only thing, no, I actually did like it. I do like it. And I think it was very articulate and trying to understand. Look, incrementalism is everywhere and everybody's doing it. And people who do it better than us are the ones who are smaller than us.
Well, Hollywood. We talked about Hollywood.
That's what I was just about to go to.
Yeah.
They have their shows out there. They're pushing a narrative and everything. All of this is incrementalism to get what they want. Okay, and they get it.
And they flipped a culture in 20 years.
None of them are stopping. And I think Christians, the form of incrementalism that is the most bothersome thing is the one that is pushing and stops. We got enough. We're good.
Yep.
And then they play that game. We're good. Just give us a little, and we're good.
Yep.
So, but my point was that in your article, you said one of the things that hurts, one of the things that is overshooting, kind of like abortion clinic, blowing up abortion clinics. Is the pushing for the criminalization of abortion.
I said first degree murder.
First degree murder.
So saying that it has to be first degree murder.
Right.
Does.
And I think that, I think we should be pushing that. I think we should be pushing that with the caveat that, but underneath this umbrella, okay, so how were you maybe, was, if you're complicit in it, then yes, okay, then how much?
So I think what we should say is we should want to criminalize it, and we should say that all abortion is murder.
And then,
but I think the thing that
and all murder deserves a death penalty.
I'm balking at though is just the idea that, but there are different kinds of murder.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the first step is saying that.
Yeah.
The first step is saying that, and
so,
because what we're after is not necessarily, again, the courts will come. I'm ultimately after the Christians that say we can't even, no, guys, like we can't say
that. Well, then, and so I'm not saying pull any punches there at all.
Now, when we start writing the law, sure, we'll get into those topics.
Right. But I think there are some people that are insisting, say it's first degree, capital punishment,
absolutely,
every instance, or else you're a compromiser.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, like, come on, guys, like let's just define it as murder, and let's say yes, it needs to be prosecuted to the full extent of biblical law.
Well, but here's the thing: Idaho already takes that into account. Like we already have basically some sort of biblical case law in Idaho.
So what would happen?
Determines it.
So what would happen is if Dan Foreman's bill goes through or something like that,
abortion's murder. Idaho has the case law to handle it from there.
But then what would happen is that somebody's going to get taken to court over it, and then we're going to have to start building up new case law under this somewhat new category. Studying history, studying what's happened in the past, and so on, and I think.
But I like being in that category.
Yes, absolutely,
way more than being in the other.
But there's a difference between saying this is the crime and this is necessarily the punishment.
Well, see but that flies pretty comfortably in my house. You lie, you get a spanking. Now we can work, but it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I don't have to explain that. You're lying, you get a spanking. Right? Like I don't think it's that complicated. Now, some other punishments, like we got to figure out what was the offense, right? When it comes to murder, I mean, guys, if we're talking about the exception, then let's not make that the rule. I think there is an exception for those things that you're talking about. I think there's a small margin of people that was like, oh, wow, this is a horrible situation. If you're talking about homosexuality, let's say that you agree that there should be a death penalty for gay sex. Well, what if a little boy gets raped? What happened? You killing him too? Well, no, of course not. He's the victim in the situation.
Right.
So I think that there's a, like you said, there's case laws to work through this.
Right.
But let's get to the position of, look, if you are killing someone, you get killed. We kill you as a society. That you don't do that. You don't get to kill people here. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
I think there's still room to work some of that out.
I'm not disagreeing.
I think there is something. It seems to me, again, without denying the fact that yes, it's a human being from conception on, absolutely, and so on. I'm not denying that. I do think there is something unique about the act of a mother allowing for that life to be taken in her womb. It's uniquely wicked in a certain way.
Yeah.
It's also unique in the fact that she is going to carry that scar with her for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
It's also unique in the fact that she's hiring an assassin
Absolutely.
to do the duty.
Absolutely.
That the fact that he's doing it on her, and then there's also just all of the historical moment we live in, with all the just insane amount of brainwashing and the information that's going on about it all. That I think all needs to be taken into account, and that's what I'm saying is that's not letting people off the hook, but it's also saying like we need to take that into account. I think biblical law takes those kinds of factors into account, and
even our laws now take those factors into account.
And the last thing that I want to say is I think ultimately we cannot forget the fact that the bottom line here is the gospel and conversion.
Yeah.
Regeneration.
Yeah.
Right. We will not win this without a massive reformation. Right. Yeah. This is going to be something where hearts are changed in order to change a culture.
Yeah.
The culture will not change because a bunch of Christians got really loud.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not.
We need revival first.
Right.
You know,
I mean, we need to get loud with the gospel. We need to get loud with the blood of Jesus.
Well, and to your point too, culture won't change if we're leading with laws.
Yeah.
Like we're in some sense a little bit, we're kind of leading with legislation.
Well, there's a balancing act here. And this is what I was trying to get at the very end of my articles. I think there's this kind of weird, like, Holy Spirit Zen thing where you're like you don't, because on the one hand, you walk in faith and so you obey. And you do what God says, and you say, "I don't care."
Yeah.
And on the other hand, there is a kind of discerning of the times and watching and saying which thing first. And that has to do with again.
We're talking strategy now.
Yeah, and it's like, but if somebody's heart is not there, like they need the gospel, and they need a change of heart, a change of mind. They need to repent so that they can change.
Yeah.
And those two things are not opposed at all.
No.
Law and grace are not opposed, but they're meant to be married. They're meant to go together.
But I think that we need revival even before we see a change in culture. We need a revival.
That's what I'm saying.
In Christendom.
Yeah.
People who already have gospel.
Right.
And don't know how to exercise it. They're not discipled properly in it.
Right.
And so when we're talking about what pro-life movement should be doing, I mean, forget those out there. If we can't even understand, if we can't get people who are Christians to admit that this is murder and murder deserves death, we're not going to get to the point where we start talking about, well, what do we do? How do we manage the account?
Well, yeah, and then maybe
how can we judge properly?
Maybe we just need to have a conversation then about like regular first degree murder and capital punishment. Like let's do that. I'd rather just let's just go to that. Let's talk about the Las Vegas shooter.
Right.
Let's talk about
a
situation. Let's go there to the clearest situation and say, guys, remember. I mean, the Pope just this week said the death penalty is inhumane and immoral.
Uh-huh.
The Pope.
Yeah.
Okay. So
who's he again?
I don't know.
Okay.
Some guy.
Okay.
He wears a hat.
We're not talking about the evangelical Pope John MacArthur, right? We're talking about the Pope.
But I think you're right. We need a reformation within the church amongst
Christians
believers. And so, but let's start with an even clearer thing, like just the death penalty for cold-blooded murder.
Let's start in Genesis.
Like premeditated
six-day creation.
Yeah, that too. Let's do that too. Like, yeah. So, God made the world.
No, but you're right. But yeah, this goes back to a beginning. We have to have some basic ground to stand on if we're going to get to that position. Absolutely.
Right.
I don't do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
We'll talk.
Hey, I love you guys.
I love you too. Yeah. I love the article.
Yeah. This is great. This is good. This is good stuff. And thanks for listening. Thanks for all the input and feedback.
Keep doing it. Yeah. Memo at crosspolitic.com.
Yeah, Gabe, you should shut up over there.
Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast.